The sound of the key turning should have been familiar. Comforting even. For 30 years, that lock had been the last barrier between me and the world, protecting me, welcoming me home, holding all the memories of laughter, arguments, and quiet evenings I once shared with my husband. But on that day, it betrayed me. The key jammed. I twisted harder, the metal cold against my trembling fingers. Then I realized it wasn't the lock. It was the bolt. Someone had slid it across from the inside, from my house. I knocked softly at first, thinking it was a mistake. The wind carried my voice, fragile and broken. "It's me. Open the door." No answer. I knocked harder, each thud echoing in the silence of the neighborhood. The porch light flickered above me, as if mocking my desperation. Then I heard it. Steps. Slow, deliberate steps approaching the door. And then her voice. My daughter's voice. "Go away, Mother. You don't belong here anymore." Those words cut deeper than the shovel that had buried my husband just hours earlier. The funeral was still fresh in my mind. My hands still smelled faintly of the roses I had laid on his casket. My black dress still clung to my skin with the weight of grief. And yet, here I was, on the outside of my own home, begging for mercy from the very child I had once carried in my arms. I pressed my forehead against the door, whispering through the wood. "Sweetheart, it's me. Please don't do this. I need to sit down. I need to breathe." Silence. Then the faint click of footsteps retreating. The door remained shut. I staggered back, staring at the windows. My husband's favorite chair was visible through the living room glass. I could almost see him sitting there, smiling, telling me to come in, to rest. But he was gone. And now, so was my place in this home. Neighbors peeked from across the street. I could feel their eyes on me, pity, curiosity, maybe even judgment. My cheeks burned. How could I explain that my own daughter had locked me out on the very day we buried her father? I sat on the porch steps, hugging my coat tighter. The night air was sharp, biting, heavy with unanswered questions. What had I done to deserve this? Was grief enough to twist love into cruelty? Or had this been building for years, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? My daughter's voice still echoed in my mind, colder than the night itself. "You don't belong here anymore." I wanted to scream, to break down the door, to demand answers. But instead, I sat frozen. Because deep inside, I feared this was only the beginning of something far darker than I could imagine. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm sharing here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time of day is it for you? I want to know how far my story will travel, even if I feel trapped in this moment. Because when my daughter locked me out of my own house, I didn't just lose a home. I lost the last illusion that my family was whole, and what happened next will haunt me forever. The funeral hall smelled of lilies and damp earth. I remember how heavy the air felt, pressing against my chest, stealing what little breath I had left. Rows of black-clad figures shifted quietly, their faces a blur of sorrow and polite sympathy. But among all those blurred faces, one absence cut me sharper than grief itself. The empty seat beside me. It should have been my daughter's. I sat in the front row, hands twisted together, knuckles white. The priest's voice droned in the distance, words of comfort and eternity spilling into the room like smoke I couldn't hold on to. All I wanted was a hand to hold, a shoulder to lean on. But the chair next to mine remained cold, unclaimed. Where was she? I glanced back. My daughter sat 3 rows behind me, posture stiff, her gaze fixed somewhere above the altar. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She looked like a statue, beautiful, unyielding, and impossibly far away. And in that moment, I felt more alone than I had at the graveside. People came to me afterward, pressing my hand, whispering, "Stay strong." But their condolences slid past me, meaningless, because the only comfort I wanted was the one person who should have been there, my daughter. When the coffin was lowered, I reached for her instinctively, desperate to cling to what family I had left. But she stepped back, just slightly, enough that my hand closed on air, enough that I felt the invisible wall she was already building between us. At the wake, I tried again. I sat at the long table, surrounded by murmurs of neighbors and distant relatives. The chair to my right remained empty, while my daughter sat across the room, laughing softly with someone I barely knew. It wasn't just distance, it was defiance. Every time our eyes met, she looked away first. Not with sorrow, but with something colder. Something I couldn't name yet. And when I asked her softly, "Why didn't you sit with me?" she gave a smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Mother, people were talking. It seemed better this way." Better this way. Better than sitting with me. Better than grieving with me. Better than being my daughter in the one moment I needed her most. I tried to swallow my hurt. I told myself she was young. She was grieving too, that everyone mourns differently. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "This isn't just grief. This is something else." Something had shifted in her the moment we lost him. Later that night, when everyone left, I wandered through the quiet house. Every corner reminded me of my husband, the smell of his cologne on the coat rack, the indentation of his favorite chair, the framed photo of our last vacation. I reached for the photo, tracing his smile with trembling fingers. And then I saw it again. The empty chair in the living room, the absence beside me, just as it had been at the funeral. Grief is supposed to bring family closer. But with every glance, every silence, every cold shoulder, my daughter drifted further away. And I had no idea why. But soon, I would. And the truth would break me more than death ever could. 3 days after the funeral, I found myself in a lawyer's office. The room smelled of polished wood and dust, the kind that settles over secrets kept too long. Heavy curtains muted the afternoon light, casting everything in somber shades of gray. I sat stiffly in the leather chair, my black dress wrinkled at the knees. My daughter sat across from me, her eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, even though we were indoors. Her posture was perfect, back straight, chin slightly raised, like a queen awaiting her crown. "Mrs. Patterson," the lawyer said softly, clearing his throat as he opened a thick folder, "we're here to read your husband's final will and testament." The words hit me harder than the funeral sermon had. Final, testament. The end of his voice, sealed on paper. I folded my hands in my lap, bracing myself. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "To my beloved wife, I leave." I leaned forward, heart pounding, ready for comfort, for security, for the proof that he had thought of me in those final days. "I leave my personal belongings, heirlooms, and any keepsakes she wishes to hold on to." Keepsakes, belongings, trinkets of memory. My stomach twisted. "That was it?" the lawyer continued. "To my daughter, I leave the family home at 1247 Oakwood Drive, along with all furnishings, vehicles, and the financial accounts attached to it." I froze. My ears buzzed. Surely I misheard. The house? Our house? The place I had built with him brick by brick, memory by memory. I turned slowly toward my daughter. For the first time since the funeral, she smiled. A small, tight smile, filled with satisfaction. The lawyer kept reading, but his words blurred into background noise. The numbers, the assets, the accounts, all of it flowed toward her. To her, my daughter, the child I had raised, clothed, fed. And to me, trinkets, memories. An empty chair beside me in church and a box of old keepsakes to gather dust. My heart raced. Had my husband truly wanted this? Had he thought I didn't need the house? That I didn't need security? That I was replaceable? Or had my daughter whispered in his ear during those final months, feeding him words I never heard? The lawyer closed the folder with a soft thud. That concludes the reading. I sat motionless, staring at my hands. They looked smaller now, weaker, as if time had shrunk me in an instant. My world, my life, reduced to heirlooms and memories. When we left the office, the sun was glaringly bright. My daughter walked ahead of me, heels clicking confidently against the pavement. I wanted to call her name, to demand answers, but the words stuck in my throat. She turned briefly, adjusting her sunglasses. "Mother, this is what Father wanted. You'll understand, eventually." Understand? How could I understand being stripped of everything, left with shadows while she stood bathed in light? That night, I sat in the kitchen staring at the faded wallpaper, my husband's empty chair across from me. The silence was unbearable. My daughter's words replayed in my mind, colder each time. This is what Father wanted. But was it? Or was there something in those papers I never saw coming? Something darker than love, heavier than grief. Because deep inside, I could feel it. This wasn't the end of my loss. It was only the beginning. The night after the will reading, I tried to speak with her. I found her in the living room, sprawled across the couch that had once been our family's gathering place. My husband and I had chosen that couch together, arguing for hours in the furniture store, until we laughed and finally agreed. Now it was hers. Or at least, she sat on it like it was. I stood in the doorway, hesitant. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. She looked up from her phone, expression sharp. "Talk about what, Mother?" I swallowed hard. "About the will, about your father, about us." For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at me with those eyes I once thought were filled with my own reflection. Then she laughed. Not a joyful laugh, a dry, bitter one. "Us?" she repeated. "There is no us. There hasn't been for a long time." Her words struck me like a slap. I stepped closer, my hands trembling. "How can you say that? I've done everything for you. I raised you. She cut me off, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You raised me? Don't make me laugh. You smothered me. You held me back. Father was the only one who believed in me. He trusted me. That's why he left me everything." My chest tightened. "That house is mine too. It's where I raised you, where I lived with your father for decades." "No," she interrupted, standing now, towering over me. "It's mine, legally, and you need to accept that. You don't belong here anymore, Mother." The word mother came out like poison, dripping with resentment. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my ears. "Don't belong here. This is my home." Her lips curled into a cold smile. "Not anymore. You're just a burden now, a reminder of weakness. Father may not have seen it in time, but I do. You cling to the past like it's going to save you. It won't." I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her remember the nights I stayed awake when she was sick, the sacrifices I made so she could have every opportunity. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down, I realized something terrifying. She meant every word. Her contempt wasn't a phase. It wasn't grief. It was conviction. And as I stood there in my own living room, feeling like an intruder, I understood. I hadn't just lost my husband. I was losing my daughter too. I whispered, more to myself than to her. "How did we come to this?" She turned away, her voice low and cold. "Because you were never enough." Those 4 words cut deeper than death. I fled to the kitchen, clutching the counter to keep myself upright. My reflection in the darkened window stared back at me, small, fragile, broken. I pressed my hand to the glass, as if searching for a way out of the prison my own child had built for me. And in that moment, I knew the worst was still yet to come. I woke up before dawn, the house eerily quiet. For years, that silence meant safety. My husband humming in the kitchen, my daughter still curled up in bed. But now silence meant something else. Exile inside the walls I had once called home. I wandered the hallway barefoot, tracing my fingers against the wallpaper that had faded with time. At the end of the hall stood our bedroom, the room where I had lived a life with him, where I whispered goodnight prayers, where we planned futures that now would never come. I reached for the doorknob. It didn't turn. I twisted harder, rattling the handle, heart thudding in my chest. Then I saw it. A new lock. Cold, metallic, freshly installed. On my bedroom door. I pressed my forehead against the wood, whispering, "Why? Why would you do this to me?" The answer came hours later. My daughter appeared in the hall, her heels clicking with confidence that felt foreign in this house. She held a mug of coffee, sipping casually, as though nothing were out of place. "You changed the lock?" I asked, my voice shaking. She didn't flinch. "Yes, it's my room now." My breath caught. "That's your father's room, my room, the place where you wasted years clinging to him?" she snapped. Her tone was ice. "He's gone, Mother. You need to stop pretending this house belongs to you. It doesn't." I felt my knees weaken. The hallway, once filled with family photos and children's laughter, now felt like a stranger's corridor. "But where am I supposed to sleep?" I whispered. She shrugged, sipping her coffee. "There's a guest room. Make yourself comfortable, or don't. It doesn't matter to me." Her words rang in my ears long after she walked away. Guest room. How could I be a guest in my own home? I crept into the small room at the far end of the hall. It smelled of dust and old linens, a space meant for visitors passing through, never for the woman who had once built this house with her own hands. I sat on the narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, tears sliding down my cheeks. Memories flooded back. The night we first brought our daughter home, wrapped in a blanket, her tiny cries echoing down this hallway. I had stood in that bedroom doorway back then, promising her a safe life, a warm life, promising to protect her no matter what. Now she was the one locking me out. Every door in the house felt heavier after that. The kitchen door slammed quicker. The living room felt colder, and my bedroom, the room that had held my entire life, was sealed shut, as though I had never existed there at all. I sat awake for hours, gripping the edges of the bed. Each creak of the floorboards sounded like the house itself, whispering that I no longer belonged. And yet, despite the humiliation, a thought gnawed at me. Why? Why such cruelty? Why the locks? Why the contempt so soon after we laid him in the ground? It wasn't just grief, it was a plan. And I feared I was only beginning to see the edges of it. Grief has a way of blurring moments, but certain words cut through the fog and stay forever. For me, it was the whispers. Not loud accusations, not public scenes, just hushed voices drifting at the edges of the wake, words that landed like stones in my heart. I remember standing near the buffet table, my plate untouched. People lined up for casseroles and sandwiches, murmuring their condolences. I should have been surrounded by comfort, but instead, I caught the fragments of conversations I wasn't meant to hear. "She's been planning this for a while, you know," one voice said. Another hushed reply. "The daughter?" "Yes. She always wanted control. Look at her now, she's not even hiding it." My hand froze midair. Planning? Control? I turned slightly, pretending to adjust my shawl, trying to catch more. But they noticed me watching, and the voices fell silent, replaced with nervous smiles. Smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I walked back to my seat, heart pounding. My daughter sat in the corner, poised, greeting mourners like a hostess at a party. She wasn't weeping, wasn't breaking like I was. No, her calmness felt calculated, deliberate, almost triumphant. The whispers followed me throughout the night. I heard she spoke with the lawyer weeks ago. Maybe he trusted her more than his wife. She always knew how to get what she wanted. Each word was a needle, stitching together a terrible possibility. This wasn't grief driving her cruelty. It was ambition. I tried to push it away, tried to tell myself people gossip when they don't understand grief. But the seed had been planted, and it rooted itself deep in my chest. Later, as the last guests trickled out, I lingered in the kitchen, staring at the stack of empty cups. My daughter walked in, her heels tapping against the tile. She didn't look tired, though she should have been. "You should rest," I said softly. "It's been a long day." She smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was sharp. "Don't worry about me, Mother. I know how to take care of myself." Her tone was casual, but I heard the subtext. "I don't need you." That night, lying in the narrow bed of the guest room, I couldn't sleep. The whispers replayed in my head. mixed with her voice, her smile, her lock on the bedroom door. Had she truly been planning this? Had my husband trusted her more than me? Or worse, had he been convinced to? I stared at the ceiling until morning, listening to the house creak, listening to the silence between the walls. And for the first time, I wondered if I had been living with a stranger all along. The daughter I thought I knew might have been gone long before her father. It was the third evening after the funeral when the knock came. I had been sitting at the small kitchen table, staring at an untouched cup of tea, when the sound startled me. Sharp, intentional, not the kind of knock you mistake for the wind. My daughter was out. Where, I didn't know. She had taken to disappearing for hours, returning with that same cold detachment, as if each day she drifted further away from me. So when I opened the door, I braced myself for her. But it wasn't her. It was Mr. Grayson, my husband's oldest friend. A tall man with tired eyes and a face lined from years of carrying too many secrets. He removed his hat respectfully, nodding. "I shouldn't be here," he said, voice low, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore. My heart skipped. "Come in." He stepped inside, glancing around nervously as though afraid my daughter might materialize from the shadows. He didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against the counter, his hands gripping the brim of his hat until his knuckles whitened. "I was close to your husband," he began. "Closer than most knew. He trusted me, and before he died, he told me things. Things you need to hear." The room seemed to shrink. I folded my arms, steadying myself. "What things?" Grayson's eyes darkened. "He suspected your daughter. He believed she was preparing something, manipulating him, pushing him toward decisions he didn't fully understand." I felt my breath catch. "The will?" He nodded. "Exactly. He wasn't himself those last months. He was under pressure, and he admitted to me he was afraid of her." The words struck like a thunderclap. "My husband? Afraid of our daughter?" Grayson's voice trembled slightly. "He wanted to change things back, but he didn't have the strength. He told me if anything happened, I should warn you, that you'd need to be careful." My knees nearly gave out. I clutched the edge of the counter, searching his face for lies, for exaggeration. But all I saw was sorrow. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Because," he said gravely, "I saw her at the funeral. The way she looked at you, it wasn't grief, it was possession, as though she had finally taken what she wanted, and I couldn't live with myself if I let you face it blind." The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. Each second seemed to hammer his warning deeper into me. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to say my daughter could never be capable of such betrayal. But then I remembered the locked bedroom, the cutting words, the whispers at the wake. Pieces were fitting together in a picture too ugly to ignore. Grayson placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice softer now. "Be careful, Eileen. She's not the little girl you remember. She's something else now." Before I could respond, he left, the front door closing with a soft click. I stood there for a long time, the silence wrapping around me like a noose. My daughter returned an hour later. She found me still at the kitchen table, the cold tea untouched. She set her purse down, eyeing me suspiciously. "Who was here?" she asked. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My silence was its own confession. She smiled then, slow, knowing, as if she already guessed. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just losing my home. I might be in danger inside it. Sleep became impossible after Mr. Grayson's warning. His words circled in my mind like vultures. "She's not the little girl you remember." I kept hearing my husband's voice too, or maybe imagining it, whispering from beyond the grave. "Be careful, Eileen." That night, while my daughter slept in the locked bedroom that had once been mine, I climbed the creaking stairs to the attic. Dust filled the air, choking me as I pushed open the door. The space smelled of mothballs and forgotten years. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe proof, maybe comfort. Maybe just a reminder that this house still held pieces of me. In the far corner, half buried beneath yellowed newspapers, I found it. A wooden box. Old, heavy, its corners dented, but the brass latch still intact. My husband's handwriting scrawled faintly across the lid. For Eileen, if I'm gone. My breath caught. My hands trembled as I unlatched it. Inside lay stacks of letters, some tied with twine, others loose. There were documents too. Bank statements, receipts, a folder thick with legal papers. I pulled one out, squinting at the faded ink. It was a draft of a will. A different will. One that left the house. To me. Tears blurred my vision. My husband had intended for me to be secure. He hadn't abandoned me. But why then did the final version name my daughter? Beneath the papers was a letter, sealed, addressed to me in his familiar script. My fingers shook as I opened it. Eileen, it began, if you're reading this, then I am gone. I don't have time to explain everything, but know this. I wanted you safe. I wanted you to keep the house. But she was relentless. She pushed. She questioned me daily, and I was too weak to resist. Forgive me. Please protect yourself. Trust your instincts. And if you can, forgive her too. I pressed the letter to my chest, sobbing silently in the dusty attic. He had known. He had seen what I refused to see. And in the end, he had left me with a warning instead of protection. The floor creaked suddenly below. My daughter's voice drifted up the stairs. Mother? What are you doing up there? I stuffed the papers back into the box, shoving it beneath a pile of old blankets. My heart raced as her footsteps echoed closer. I was just looking for old photo albums, I stammered when she appeared at the top of the stairs. She narrowed her eyes, scanning the attic as though she could see through every shadow. Then she smiled faintly, that cold smile that no longer resembled the child I once knew. Be careful, she said softly. The attic can be dangerous. You wouldn't want to fall. Her words lingered in the air like a threat. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, clutching my husband's letter under my pillow. I had proof now, proof that he hadn't abandoned me, proof that she had cornered him, broken him down. But the question clawed at me. If she could manipulate her father into rewriting his will, what else was she capable of doing? And would I survive finding out? The house felt smaller every day. The walls, once filled with my husband's laughter, now pressed against me like a cage. My daughter's footsteps echoed with authority, each one reminding me that I was no longer the mistress of this home, but a tolerated shadow. So when Mrs. Langley from across the street invited me for dinner, I accepted. I told myself it was just a meal. But the truth? I was desperate. For warmth, for voices that didn't slice me open, for a chair that didn't feel borrowed. Her house smelled of roasted chicken and fresh bread, aromas that tugged at memories of my own kitchen when life was whole. The table was set neatly with mismatched plates, candles flickering softly. I felt a lump in my throat before I even sat down. You poor thing, Mrs. Langley whispered as she ladled soup into my bowl. Losing your husband is tragedy enough, but the way your daughter looks at you, I noticed at the funeral. I froze. The spoon trembled in my hand. What do you mean? She exchanged a glance with her husband before leaning closer. People are talking, Eileen. They say she's been waiting for this moment, that she wanted the house for herself long before your husband passed. My chest tightened. That's just gossip, I said quickly, though the words felt hollow. Her husband cleared his throat. Maybe, but gossip often comes from a grain of truth. We've seen her meeting with men in suits, Eileen, men who don't look like friends. Developers, perhaps. The room spun for a moment. Developers, strangers, plans. My daughter wasn't just taking the house. She might be preparing to sell it, to erase it entirely. I pressed my napkin to my lips, struggling to breathe. This house, it holds everything. My life, my husband's memory. How could she? Mrs. Langley reached across the table, her warm hand covering mine. You're not alone, dear. Everyone in this neighborhood remembers who built that home, who tended its garden. We see you, even if she doesn't. Tears pricked my eyes. Their kindness was a balm I hadn't realized I craved, but it also deepened my shame. to feel more love from strangers across the street than from my own flesh and blood. It broke something inside me. As I walked home that evening, the night air cold against my cheeks, I saw the house from a distance. The porch light glowed like an eye, watching me, judging me. It wasn't my house anymore. It was hers. When I stepped inside, my daughter was waiting in the hallway, her arms crossed, her gaze sharp. "Dinner went well?" she asked, her tone edged with suspicion. "Yes," I replied softly. She tilted her head, studying me. "Be careful who you talk to, Mother. People love to fill your head with nonsense. You wouldn't want to start believing lies." Her words were honeyed, but the warning underneath was unmistakable. That night, lying in the guest bed, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself, were they lies? Or were the strangers across the street showing me more truth than my daughter ever would? The morning sun filtered weakly through the guest room curtains when she knocked on my door. Not gently, firm sharp, a demand, not a request. "Mother," she called, her voice calm in that chilling way. "We need to talk." I rose slowly, every muscle stiff from another night of restless sleep. When I opened the door, she stood there with a folder tucked under her arm, her hair neatly pinned, her expression unreadable. "In the kitchen," she said simply. I followed, my bare feet brushing the cold floor, my stomach twisted with unease. On the table lay a stack of papers, neatly arranged, a pen placed deliberately on top. "What is this?" I asked, though my heart already knew the answer. "Legal documents," she said, sliding the folder toward me. "Property rights. The bank needs clarification. It's just a formality." A formality. The word slithered into my ears like a lie dressed in silk. I glanced at the first page. Dense paragraphs, legal language thick as fog. Words about transfers, rights, ownership. My eyes caught a phrase, full relinquishment of claim. My breath hitched. "I don't understand," I whispered. She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, suffocating. "It means what it says. Father left me the house, but paperwork can be messy. This will keep things clean. No confusion, no delays. Sign it, and everything will be easier." Her smile was practiced, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of impatience. My hands trembled as I set the paper down. "But if I sign this, I have nothing." She tilted her head, her tone turning sharper. "You already have nothing, Mother. You're living here out of my kindness. You should be grateful I haven't asked you to leave." The words hit me like a punch. My throat burned. "Your kindness?" "Yes," she snapped. "Don't pretend this is your house anymore. It isn't. Father wanted me to have it. You're just clinging to something that doesn't belong to you." I felt the room tilt. My chair scraped as I pushed back, shaking my head. He wanted me safe. "He told me." Her eyes narrowed. "Told you what?" The letter from the attic pulsed in my mind, my husband's handwriting etched into my memory. "I wanted you safe," but I bit my tongue. If she knew I had it, she'd take that too. "I won't sign," I said softly, forcing the words through the lump in my throat. For a moment, silence. Then she laughed, low, bitter, humorless. "Don't be dramatic. You'll sign. If not today, then soon. Because, Mother, you don't have a choice. Where else would you go?" Her words lingered, cold and final, as she gathered the papers back into the folder. She left them on the counter like bait, the pen balanced neatly on top. All day, I avoided the kitchen, the weight of those documents pressing into me even from another room. By evening, I walked past and saw her watching me, waiting, confident. And I realized then, it wasn't just about property, it was about control, about erasing me, piece by piece, until I disappeared entirely. The pen lay there, silent, gleaming in the dim light. One signature, and everything that tethered me to this life would vanish. I didn't sign. Not that night, not yet. But I knew she would come back. And each time, her voice, her threats, her cold smile would push harder. And one day soon, my hand might not be strong enough to resist. The following week, the house transformed. Not into the warm home I once cherished, but into a stage where my daughter played queen, and I, the silent ghost in the corner. She hosted gatherings almost nightly. Neighbors, business acquaintances, men in suits who carried themselves with the confidence of people who had come to claim something. I would watch from the stairwell as laughter echoed off the walls, as glasses clinked where once my husband and I had shared quiet meals. The living room, once a sanctuary of family photos and memories, was stripped bare of anything that tied it to me. My wedding picture vanished from the mantel, replaced by sleek vases and cold modern decor. She even moved my husband's favorite armchair into the garage, saying it clashed with her vision. Her vision. I tried to speak once, my voice trembling in the din of conversation. Perhaps it's too soon for parties? The room fell silent for a moment, all eyes turning toward me. My daughter's smile didn't falter, but her eyes flashed with steel. "Oh, Mother," she said lightly, "we grieve in different ways. For me, it's about moving forward. For you, it seems to be about clinging to the past. Don't worry, everyone understands." The laughter resumed, louder than before, but I caught the glances. Pitying, condescending, as though I were some fragile relic best kept hidden. So I stayed silent. I became invisible in my own house, drifting through hallways like a ghost, while she entertained in the rooms I had once filled with love. My footsteps grew quieter, my presence smaller. Each day I felt myself fading, piece by piece, into the wallpaper. But silence has its own power. From the shadows, I listened. I heard the deals whispered late at night, the mentions of development potential, the names of companies I didn't recognize, words like profit and expansion spoken in the house my husband built with his bare hands. One evening, as I carried a tray of empty glasses into the kitchen, I overheard her laughing with one of the suited men. "She's harmless," my daughter said, her voice dripping with dismissal. "She won't fight me. She never does." The words burned, but I kept my face neutral as I passed by. My silence, she thought, was weakness. She didn't realize it was survival. I sat in the dark that night, clutching my husband's letter from the attic, my one lifeline. He had known. He had seen her ambition, her hunger. And now I was living in the shadow of her triumph, silenced not by choice, but by necessity. Every smile she flashed to her guests, every glass she raised in toast, was another victory. And every word I swallowed, every protest I buried, was another brick in the wall she built between us. But silence doesn't last forever. It festers, it grows, and one day it demands to be broken. It was Mrs. Langley again who came knocking, this time during one of my daughter's many evenings out. The house was quiet, the smell of her perfume still lingering in the hall, when the doorbell rang. I opened it cautiously, and Mrs. Langley stepped inside, her eyes darting nervously toward the street, as though she feared being seen. She clutched a folded newspaper in one hand, her voice hushed. "Eileen," she whispered, "I need to tell you something, and you mustn't let her know it came from me." I led her to the kitchen table, offering tea I knew neither of us would drink. Her hands shook as she laid the newspaper down and pointed to a small article circled in ink. It was about a failed investment company. Bankrupt, lawsuits, and at the very bottom, buried in the text, a name I knew too well, my daughter's. "She poured money into it," Mrs. Langley explained, her voice tight. "Hundreds of thousands, all gone, and now she's desperate. That's why she wanted the house, Eileen. It isn't just greed, it's survival." The room spun around me. My daughter, the one who had accused me of weakness, had gambled her future away, and now she was gambling with mine. "She's been meeting with developers," Mrs. Langley continued, leaning closer. "She plans to sell this house, your land, everything, to cover her debts, to keep her reputation intact. People have been talking, but I thought you deserved to know." I pressed a hand to my chest, my breath shallow. The puzzle pieces slid into place. Her sudden confidence, her relentless push for my signature, her smug smile at the lawyer's office. It wasn't just about control. It was about money, about hiding the ruin she'd made of herself. "She'll sell it," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "She'll erase every trace of him, of me, of us, just to pay for her mistakes." Mrs. Langley reached for my hand, her grip firm. "You need to protect yourself, Eileen. She won't stop until she has it all." When she left, I sat in the dim kitchen long after the clock struck midnight. The newspaper spread before me like an accusation. My husband's warning echoed in my mind. She was relentless. She pushed. Forgive me. The truth was undeniable now. My daughter's cruelty wasn't just born from grief or bitterness. It was calculated, fueled by desperation. She wasn't only betraying me, she was gambling with my entire life. Later, when she returned, I heard the jingle of her keys, the confident stride of her heels. She swept past me without a word, her phone pressed to her ear. But just before she disappeared into the hallway, I caught a fragment of her conversation. "Yes," she said, her voice low. "The paperwork will be done soon. Don't worry, she won't resist forever." My blood ran cold. She was talking about me, and in that moment, I realized silence might no longer protect me. It might be the very thing that destroys me. The storm rolled in without warning, thunder shaking the windows, lightning carving jagged scars across the sky. I stood at the kitchen sink, staring out at the darkened street, when the power flickered and died. The house plunged into shadow, lit only by the occasional flash from above. She was out again. I was alone. The rain hammered harder, each drop a drumbeat on the roof. The wind howled, rattling the shutters. And then, as if the storm itself wanted to seal my fate, the front door slammed shut behind me when I stepped onto the porch to fetch a lantern. I turned, heart racing, and twisted the knob. Locked. I pounded with my fists, calling out, "Please! Not tonight! Please!" My voice was lost in the roar of the storm. The rain soaked me through in minutes. My black coat clung to my skin, my hair plastered to my face. I huddled against the door, shivering, begging the house that had once sheltered me to open. But it didn't. Through the window, I saw the faint glow of candles flickering in the living room. My living room. My husband's chair still sat in the corner, shadows dancing across its fabric. A cruel vision of warmth just beyond my reach. I thought of all the nights I had tucked my daughter into bed, assuring her no storm could hurt her as long as she was inside these walls. Now she had locked me out, left me to the mercy of the thunder and the rain. The storm raged on. I wrapped my arms around myself, my teeth chattering. Minutes felt like hours. I pressed my forehead to the door and whispered, "Why, my child? Why would you do this to me?" A flash of lightning illuminated the street, and for a moment, I saw her. My daughter's silhouette at the window, standing in the darkness, watching me. She didn't move, didn't open the door, just stood there, a figure carved in shadow, as if savoring the sight of me, drenched and broken. The image seared itself into my mind. My own child, my flesh and blood, looking at me not with pity, not with love, but with cold triumph. The rain poured harder. My body ached with the cold. I thought of my husband then, his voice, his touch, the promises we'd made. Would he have imagined this? His wife, locked outside their home by the very daughter they once cradled between them? When the storm finally began to fade, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth, I was too weak to stand. I collapsed on the porch, my cheek pressed against the wooden boards slick with rain. And then, just as my eyes fluttered shut, I heard it, the click of the lock sliding open. I looked up, shivering, but the door didn't swing wide in welcome. Instead, her voice slipped through the crack, low and sharp. "See, Mother? The world is cruel, and you're too weak to survive it." Then the door slammed again, the bolt sliding back into place. The storm outside had passed, but inside, the true storm was only beginning. Morning came gray and heavy after the storm, the house smelling of damp wood and betrayal. My body still ached from the night I had spent on the porch, but something inside me had hardened. The silence between us could not stretch any further. It was time to speak. I found her in the dining room, sipping coffee as though nothing had happened. The same table where we had once celebrated birthdays and Christmases now felt like a battlefield. "We need to talk," I said, my voice hoarse but steady. She didn't look up. "About what, Mother?" "About us. About what you've done. About what you're planning." She set her cup down slowly, finally meeting my gaze. Her eyes, so much like her father's, should have brought comfort. Instead, they were ice. "You think you know me?" she said softly, almost mocking. "But you don't. You never did. You were too busy clinging to him, to the past, to your little illusions. You never saw me for who I really am." My chest tightened. "And who are you now? A woman who locks her mother out in a storm? A daughter who takes pleasure in cruelty?" Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "I'm a survivor. I'm someone who refuses to be weak. Father saw that. He knew I had strength you never did. That's why he left me the house. That's why he trusted me, not you." Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "That isn't true. He wanted me safe. I found his words, his warnings. He knew you were relentless. He was afraid of you." For the first time, her smile faltered. A shadow crossed her face, but she quickly masked it. "Letters, words, ghosts. You think that matters now? He's gone, and everything he owned is mine." I took a step closer, my voice shaking but fierce. "I may be broken, but I am not blind. I know about your debts, the failed investments, the developers. You're not strong, my daughter. You're desperate." Her eyes blazed then, fury sparking beneath her calm exterior. She slammed her hand on the table, the sound sharp as a gunshot. "Enough! You will not ruin this for me. You've always been weak, always dragging us down. But I'm not letting you destroy what I've built. Not again." "Again?" I whispered. "What have I ever taken from you?" Her laugh was harsh, filled with years of resentment. "My childhood, my freedom. Do you know what it was like growing up in your shadow of sorrow, always second to your grief, your fears? You smothered me with your love, Mother, and I hated it. Now I'm free. Finally." The words sliced through me. I had thought my love was a shelter. To her, it had been a cage. I stood frozen, staring at the daughter I no longer recognized. My heart begged me to reach out, to find the child hidden beneath all that rage. But the woman before me left no room for hope. Her voice dropped to a whisper, chilling in its finality. "This house is mine. My life is mine. You are nothing here." I stepped back, the weight of her words heavier than the storm that had drenched me. The last thread between us snapped in that moment. There would be no reconciliation, no forgiveness, only silence, and the echo of love twisted into something unrecognizable. And as I turned away, I understood. My husband's death had not left me alone. My daughter had finished the work. I left the dining room in silence. Her words trailed behind me, like smoke that clung to my skin. "You are nothing here." They rang louder than the storm, sharper than any lock she had ever closed against me. I wandered through the house one last time. Each room felt hollow, stripped of its heart. The living room no longer carried the scent of my husband's cologne. The kitchen, once alive with the sound of pots clanging and laughter, now felt sterile, like a showroom. And the bedroom, our bedroom, was lost to me forever, its door locked with a finality that felt like a coffin lid. I paused at the hallway, where our family photographs had once hung. The empty nails still scarred the wallpaper, tiny reminders of what had been torn away. Our smiles, our milestones, our love, all gone, removed as though we had never existed. I thought of my husband's letter from the attic, his plea, his apology. "Forgive me, protect yourself." I clutched it close, the paper soft from being unfolded too many times. It was the only thing left that belonged to me, proof that once someone had loved me enough to try to warn me. Outside, the morning light pressed through the curtains, pale and cold. I knew then that I couldn't stay. A house is not walls or roofs. It's love, it's safety. And without that, It is nothing but timber and brick. I stepped onto the porch with my small bag. Just a few clothes, the letter, and the memories she couldn't erase. I turned back one last time. The house loomed, solid, unforgiving, its windows glinting like eyes that no longer recognized me. Neighbors passed on the street, their glances filled with pity they didn't dare voice. I kept my chin high, though my heart was breaking, because what dignity I had left would be mine to protect. I walked away slowly, each step heavier than the last. Behind me stood not just a house, but the grave of my marriage, my motherhood, my trust. And yet, as I reached the end of the street, I whispered to myself, she can take the house, she can take the walls, but she cannot take my memories. I will carry them with me, the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his hand, the moments when love still lived under that roof. Those are mine, untouchable. So if you've stayed with me until the end, maybe your heart has felt something too. Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe if you'd like to continue sharing these stories with me. Because sometimes the saddest truth is this: the house may stand, but the family inside it does not.